Hello guys. Happy Friday evening. I'm Katie. I am popping in here today to do a quick live training today with some tips and tricks and tools and tactics and strategies for hikers who follow some sort of alternative or restrictive diet, whether that's gluten-free or dairy-free or vegan or vegetarian or anything like that. I have a lot of experience in that realm. Perhaps that's why you've been drawn to my world. So I'm going to talk from that experience. So if you're in here, say hi. If you're catching the replay, say hello. If you come up with questions as I go along, please post them in the chat. Even if it's the replay, I will come back and answer those later. And yeah, so for those of you who are new to my world, I'm Katie. I'm a nutritionist, a holistic health coach, and a long distance hiker. And I am in the business of helping outdoor enthusiasts to create a resilient body, mind, and spirit so that they can get outdoors more. So as I mentioned, this training today is going to be about tips and tricks for hiking on a restricted diet. Mostly I'm going to be talking about like long distance hiking, but you could apply a lot of this to day hiking as well. I would love to hear who in here is on some sort of, I hate calling it a restricted diet or an alternative diet, but that's the best term I have for it right now. So let me know if you're in here, what kind of diet you follow, what kind of dietary restrictions you have. I would love to know. I know I've heard from a lot of you personally, a lot of vegans, a lot of people who are gluten-free, vegetarians. I've definitely worked with all sorts of students and clients from all sorts of dietary backgrounds. If you followed my work at all, you know that I don't promote one specific diet per se. I help my clients and students figure out the diet that is best for them. Never wanting to change what someone is doing or, get into like an ethics conversation or anything like that. It's really about figuring out how to do the diet that you're eating in a way that best supports your body for your goals, whether that's body composition or energy or anything like that. So let me know, pop in here, say hi, let me know why you're here, what you're hoping to get out of this. And again, if you have any like dietary restrictions or anything like that, let me know in the chat and I will speak to those directly. So as I mentioned, I have a lot of experience with this and I'll get into that in a minute. Let me look at my notes real quick. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say in the intro. I'm excited you guys are here. I'm excited you're spending time with me today. I'm going to cover first some general tips, and then I'm going to talk about what a typical day of eating looks like for me on trail. It's changed a lot over like the past 10 plus years I've been in long distance hiking, but I will speak to what I did most recently on the CDT in 2019, and that's actually when my diet's probably been like the most restricted, and that was due to some health reasons, but it actually ended up working out really well because it was a really great anti-inflammatory, energy-dense, nutrient-dense diet. So if you're watching and if this resonates, I do also want to let you guys know that I have my next round of one-to-one coaching spots. I'm enrolling right now, and I will be taking applications for that until December 15th because the container is about a 3-month container, and I'm going to go hiking in the spring, so we need to get rolling very soon, and definitely by the start of the new year, so that we can get you through the program and get you hitting your goals and out on your adventures if that's what your goal is, or meeting your health goals sooner. So if you're interested in optimizing your health and working with someone to create a personalized nutrition and lifestyle plan to help you feel your best, reach out to me. You can send me a private message and we can jump on a call and talk about what the details of it look like. So if you want to hit the ground running basically in 2021 to have more energy, endurance, resilience for a year full of adventuring, then this is for you. I support clients in helping them tune into their body's wants and needs and finding the best way forward that's unique to their body. So let's dive into the training. So my experience, I'll just briefly cover it just so you know where I'm coming from. In 2014 on the PCT, I was a vegetarian for the 4-ish months that it took me to complete the trail. And for the 15 years prior to that. So I have experience planning a long distance hike as a vegetarian. And then most recently on the CDT, I was eating a gluten-free, dairy-free, and pretty low grain diet. It came from, I was having autoimmune issues, and so I had done an autoimmune paleo diet, which I won't get into all the details of that, but this is just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from. And really I had to follow that diet. It wasn't really even an option if I wanted to have the energy to finish my hike. It was, I couldn't eat like the standard hiker diet, even if it appealed to me, which it really didn't. So yeah, I had to do a lot of research and a lot of experimentation before the CDT to get a diet that would keep me healthy when I was pushing my body that hard for 3,000 miles. And I had a goal to do the trail in less than 100 days. So I knew that I had to be even more resilient. So, in which I did end up doing that. So, and I attribute a lot of it to eating a healthy diet. So here are my thoughts and experiences on how to stay healthy and have lots of energy while long distance hiking on a restricted diet. So first I'll start with just a few general tips. The first one is to plan ahead, and if this is a long distance hike, I invite you to send boxes, especially to places where the options are limited, essentially, where there are not many grocery stores. Like on the Oregon Desert Trail, for example, I sent a box to every single town that I went to because it was so remote. On the CDT, I still sent quite a few boxes. And I know that a lot of people think that sending boxes is a pain, that it's too much work up front, but I'll speak for myself. I care a lot about what I eat. And like I said, my diet was pretty restricted, and I wanted to know that I would have what I needed. I didn't want to spend time and hassle hunting down what I was looking for in these from unfamiliar and remote grocery stores. So I think that sending boxes is worth it. Obviously, it's up to you, but I would encourage you to think about that. Just think about what is going to be available in the towns that you're going through. So I know that seems obvious, but if you're planning a hike in 2021, it's something to be thinking about now of like, oh, I need to be planning out my resupply. I actually have a really detailed blog post about how to think through all of that as well. Of like, first looking at where you absolutely need to send a box, and then from, maybe you have a mixed strategy where you send a box to the really, really remote places and you buy in the towns that are a little more well-stocked. I'm not going to go into that right here, but I have resources for that if you're looking. Something to consider if you're on a restricted diet. The next thing I will mention is focusing on whole foods and nutrient density. So there are a lot of gluten-free, vegan, alternative health products out there, food products out there that are essentially like the junk food versions of that diet. So I think there's a common misconception, and probably not of followers actually of these diets, but maybe. I'm just saying though, there's a kind of a misconception that if you're eating gluten-free or if you're eating vegan products that it's automatically healthy, but it's just not true. There can be a lot of products that are essentially still processed foods. They just happen to be vegan or gluten-free. Like I think Oreos are vegan? Yeah, I think, which Oreos, not the healthiest food probably if you're eating for energy. So focusing on whole foods and focusing on nutrient density, I think is a great way to go about it. And just like thinking about that when you're evaluating what products you're taking. Like there's a healthy and an unhealthy way to do keto, vegan, gluten-free, whatever it is that you're doing. And that's essentially focusing on more whole foods and like the less processed versions of things. And I'll get into some of the specifics because I know it's hard to think. You're like, well, I'm not going to carry fresh fruits and vegetables on the trail, right? Which is maybe a lot of what you're eating right now. But there are alternatives for the trail that you can be taking instead. And so on that note, I think carrying superfoods or sending yourself like superfoods or supplements, some sort of nutritional insurance, like a greens powder or something like that, can be really helpful because, as I was just saying, we have far less access to fresh fruits and vegetables when we're on trail, and those are the foods that are really packed with antioxidants and that are going to combat the free radical damage that's happening from all the stress that we're putting on our body when we're hiking these long distances. So that's, I was just looking at my notes. Yeah, backpacking essentially is placing larger demands on the body, and having this extra nutritional insurance through a greens powder or some high quality supplements. Like I took cordyceps and different functional mushroom powders to support my immune system when I was hiking the CDT. I also have a blog post about all of the supplements that I took on the CDT, which wasn't a lot, but it was just a few key ones that I knew were going to keep me healthy throughout the trail. And maybe I'll do a separate live on that. If you have any interest in that, let me know, and I'll talk about that, because I think that also really played into how great I felt pushing 30 plus mile days back to back for 3+ months. So a sample day for me on the CDT, and again, this was gluten-free, dairy-free, low grain intake, and I also was not carrying a stove for about half of the trail. So I think the examples I'm going to give you here are no cook. If you have a stove with you, obviously your options are expanded even more. And I'm not going to cover every single food option in existence that you could go for, but this just gives you an idea of what worked for me. And it's, yeah, well, I'll just get into it and you'll see what it looks like. So I would start the day with a trail smoothie, which I have that recipe also on my blog. And it's essentially just a mix of a protein powder, coconut milk powder, a greens powder, usually spices that are anti-inflammatory like ginger and cinnamon, some sea salt, of course, and like I mentioned, cordyceps mushroom, which is actually really good for stamina and endurance. So I would start my day with that trail smoothie, or on days I didn't have that, and that's something I sent to myself, but on days where like places where I bought and I didn't have those trail mix smoothies that I'd sent to myself, I would do something like what I call an upgraded overnight oats. So it would be oats plus something like nuts or chia seeds, spices, nut butter. Even like if I had a protein powder, I would mix that into the overnight oats and soak it. I didn't tend to put a lot of dried fruit into the overnight oats because that's like a really big carb punch first thing in the morning, and for me that doesn't make me feel very good. I'm not going to get into like blood sugar balance and macronutrient timing in this video. I talk a lot about it on my website, and I can possibly talk about it on a future video if you're interested in that, but I would focus mostly on like protein and fats in the morning. So that was generally the first thing I would have. Sometime mid-morning I would go for some sort of like higher protein, lower glycemic bar. It's just kind of how it goes, or at least that's my experience, is that you're going to tend to eat like a fair amount of bars. So it's just a matter of like looking for the healthier ones. And to me, that's ones that are higher in protein, lower in sugar, or like I said, like low glycemic. So there's one called 4 Points that I ate a ton of those. They're prune based, and the protein source in there was hemp seeds. And those would just give me really good steady energy. So I would eat one of those mid-morning. Or I might snack on like a homemade trail mix, which is super simple. I'll just go down like the bulk foods aisle and put whatever looks good in there, in terms of like nuts, seeds, or dried fruit, or coconut flakes, and sometimes add like some spices in there. Midday was usually almond butter and sweet potato chips, or potentially like a tuna packet and chips. Let's see, afternoon snack might be jerky. Sometimes I would snack on granola and nut butter. And then dinner would be something like I would cold soak freeze-dried chicken and freeze-dried veggies or dehydrated veggies. Or when I was on the PCT, I was always doing like legumes, like hummus or refried beans, instant refried beans, or instant black beans with chips on the side and some veggies soaked in there as well. And then usually some dark chocolate for dessert. And it's just that simple. So as whole food as I can get for being on trail, but you can see there's still a lot of nutrition in there, like with the simple trail mixes, which are just going to be like nuts and seeds and things like that, getting in the protein. And that's something I'll speak to in a minute when I talk about vegetarian and vegan diets. And I should mention that with all of these, I'm really choosy about the quality. I know that that's a privilege, and I know that's not accessible for all of us. You can still eat really healthy, even on a limited budget. I think that's a misconception that you have to have an outstanding budget to eat healthy on trail. You don't. I would just say go for as quality of a source as you can, and as few of ingredients as possible. If you're looking at a bar, like go for the one that has 5 ingredients instead of 27. Or same thing with chips, like the sweet potato chips that I took are just sweet potatoes, coconut oil, and sea salt, instead of Doritos that have like 47 ingredients in them. And that's not because any foods are good or bad. There's no moralizing food here. It's simply because there are foods that are going to be less inflammatory to your body and more inflammatory to your body. So I'm choosing ones that are going to have less of a burden on my body and that are going to give me better energy. So let's get into some just specific diets real quick. I think with gluten-free and dairy-free, let me move this. There we go. I think that it's not terribly hard anymore to find good products and protein, like to find good products that are gluten-free and dairy-free, and protein isn't obviously a concern for those diets unless you're gluten-free, dairy-free, and vegan or vegetarian. So I would say for those ones, as long as you're focusing on the whole food sources, then you're going to be making pretty healthy options. And then for vegans and vegetarians, some considerations are like vitamin deficiencies to be aware of. So that would be B12, zinc, vitamin D, and iron. Those are some of the top ones. These all play a huge role in your energy, your immunity, and just your overall health. And actually I should mention, even if you're not a vegan or vegetarian, I think vitamin D and magnesium are like two of the highest vitamin deficiencies. And as I just mentioned, those both play a really big role in your overall health, your energy, your immune function. So the only way really to know where you are with those is to get tested. So if you have the resources, I would encourage you to get tested to see where your levels are at before starting supplementation. So supplementation is one option. Thinking about foods that contain those things is another option if you are on a vegan or vegetarian diet. I actually, when I was a vegetarian on the PCT and had been for many, many, many years prior to that, I ended the PCT exhausted from protein deficiency anemia, and because I just wasn't paying attention to my protein on trail, and I was getting sources here and there. I thought it was enough, but I wasn't really tracking it all. So I got through the trail fine, but I ended up feeling pretty awful afterwards. So someone had asked a question about high protein vegetarian options on trail. So I think it was perhaps Lydia, I wanted to speak to that. So some high protein vegetarian options. I'll mention first protein powders because they're a concentrated source of protein. Obviously whole foods are ideal, but I think protein powder is a great option on trail. When you are relying on that protein, it's so important because it's going to prevent, it's going to support, I should say, muscle repair and recovery, and it's going to help support your immune system, and it's important for metabolic function as well. So protein is super important. I think it's easy to get carbs and fat on trail, but getting good protein sources is harder. So while I'm whole foods first, but I think proteins can be a really good option. And there are obviously vegan and vegetarian options for that. Beans and legumes are another good option for protein for vegetarians or vegans on trail. On the PCT, like I said, I used instant hummus, refried beans, and black beans almost every night with dehydrated veggies, and I would just cold soak it. You could also, speaking of beans and legumes, you could also look for snacks that are made with those things. Like there's those chickpea chips. There's also like black bean chips. There's all sorts of like really interesting snacks on the market now that are much healthier than the alternatives, and where you can like sneak some extra protein in. Let's see, chia, flax, and hemp. While they're not like super concentrated sources, they have some protein in there, so it can definitely help if you're on a vegan or vegetarian diet, or even if you're not. Quinoa is an option. I have never tried quinoa flakes or instant quinoa, but I have seen that that product is available, so that might be an option to try since quinoa is fairly high in protein. I see a couple people watching, Jerry and Frank. Hello, thank you guys for being here. I'm so glad you're hanging out with me Friday evening. And then the last one I'll mention for high protein vegetarian options is bars. And that's another one, like protein powders. It's not ideal, but on trail your options are limited. So finding some good bar options, and I'll mention resources for where you can get all this stuff at the end of the video, but I will just say that I have a lot of options of different bars that I have relied on trail on my website under a tab that says favorites. And it's like all the different food products that I, like to carry myself on trail, that like the ingredient list looks good to me and it fits like my dietary preferences. Let's see. Something that I will mention briefly is the idea of complete proteins if you're on a vegan or vegetarian diet. So a food is considered a complete protein when it contains the 9 essential amino acids that our body cannot produce on its own. So we have to get them from the food that we eat. Most likely, if you're eating a varied diet, you are getting these things without having to, like you're getting these complementary incomplete proteins that will form a complete protein if you are eating like I said, a varied diet, so you don't have to think about it too much, but it's something to be aware of. These complete proteins are highest in animal foods, but there are plant sources like quinoa, soy, hemp, chia, spirulina, tempeh, which is also soy. Amaranth is one, but you can also combine 2 incomplete proteins. I don't know why this camera keeps moving here. So you can combine incomplete proteins. So beans, lentils, and peanuts can combine with a grain like wheat or rice or corn to form a complete protein. Nuts or seeds, essentially nuts or seeds with whole grains. So rice and beans or peanut butter on toast would be a couple examples of that. Again, probably not something you need to stress about too much, but something to be aware of if you are especially on a vegan or vegetarian diet. And then the resources that I mentioned, so since this has been such a part of my journey and I wish I would have had resources when I started hiking, I made a ton of those resources for alternative diets while you're hiking, because you absolutely can hike and do it in a healthy way that's not going to deplete your body. And I would say arguably a healthier way than what the standard thru hiker, long distance hiker diet is. So I made a lot of those resources. I have the Healthy Hiker Grocery Guide that lists out, it's essentially almost like a pantry guide that has all the different foods that I like to take on trails, like whether it's one product alone or like the combination. It has like the source, it links right to it. So I think that's a great resource. I have that Eat for Endurance ebook, if that was one of my first resources I made. If you haven't picked that up, it is suitable for a no-cook diet, which I know that's probably not a lot of you. But that has also some sample like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack ideas that are all whole food based, anti-inflammatory. I believe they're all vegetarian, because I think I was still vegetarian when I made that. I have the favorites page on my website that I mentioned earlier in this video, where I also link to several of my favorite food products. And then I have a free, I think I call it an ultralight healthy meal planning course, essentially, which has a ton of resources, everything that I use to prepare for the CDT, including like a spreadsheet with everything that I ate and put into every resupply box on the CDT, essentially. So, and some videos in there that'll show you products as well. So if I didn't give enough specific food examples in this video, hopefully by checking out those resources, you can get some more ideas. Again, if you have questions about this, pop them in the chat box. If this resonated for you, if you're on a restricted diet, if this is something that's interesting to you, let me know. I will definitely speak more about this because I think it's just great to have those resources out there. So I hope this was helpful. Drop some questions below or just say hi. If you caught this, even if it's the replay, I'll come back later and catch it. As I mentioned, if you are interested in nabbing one of those one-to-one coaching spots for the next round, reach out to me before December 15th so that we can get you set up to get started in the new year and get you working towards your health goals. Essentially, we'll help you get there faster and with more ease. It's helpful to have someone there, not just for accountability, but to help you work through obstacles, to help you brainstorm solutions, and to help you really create a personalized, customized plan that's unique to your body and to your lifestyle. So I would love to help you with that. Reach out to me privately and just let me know you're curious, and we'll get to know each other and see if it's a good fit. So that is all. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.